The United States Supreme Court stands as the final authority on the nation's most divisive and complex legal questions, shaping the laws that govern American society for generations. Its decisions ripple far beyond the courtroom, influencing the daily lives of millions, and often igniting passionate debate across the country. Among the many contentious issues the court faces, few are as polarizing or emotionally charged as the right to bear arms. The debate over gun rights is deeply rooted in American history and identity, touching on questions of freedom, safety, and the very meaning of constitutional rights. The Second Amendment, a mere 27 words in the Constitution, has become a central battleground in America's ongoing culture wars. It pits the deeply held value of personal liberty against the urgent need for public safety, with both sides claiming to defend the nation's core principles. In recent years, the Supreme Court has expanded the interpretation of gun rights, affirming that Americans have the right to own and carry firearms for self-defense, not just within their homes, but also in public spaces. These rulings have reshaped the legal landscape and intensified the national conversation. These landmark decisions have sparked fierce and ongoing debate. Gun rights advocates celebrate what they see as a victory for individual freedom and constitutional protection, rallying in support of the Second Amendment. Meanwhile, gun control supporters warn that expanding gun rights could lead to increased danger and more gun violence, urging lawmakers and the courts to consider the consequences for public safety and community well-being. Now, as the Supreme Court begins its new term, it has agreed to hear a pivotal case from Hawaii, one that will test the limits of where licensed individuals can carry guns, especially on private property that is open to the public, such as shopping centers and restaurants. The outcome of this case will set a crucial precedent for states nationwide, potentially reshaping gun laws across the country. For many, it is one of the most consequential Second Amendment cases in years, with the power to redefine the balance between individual rights and collective security. In 2022, the Supreme Court's landmark Bruin decision dramatically expanded gun rights across the nation, striking down long-standing restrictions and setting a new legal precedent for how courts interpret the Second Amendment. In response, Hawaii's legislature moved swiftly, passing one of the most comprehensive gun control laws in the country, an effort to draw a clear line in the sand and protect public safety in the wake of the ruling. The new law made it illegal to carry firearms in most public-facing private businesses, such as restaurants, retail stores, and entertainment venues, unless the owners posted clear signs explicitly welcoming guns on their premises. This marked a dramatic reversal of the previous approach, where carrying guns was generally permitted unless a business chose to ban them with posted signage. The law also created a long list of sensitive places, including public parks, beaches, government buildings, schools, and hospitals, where firearms were strictly prohibited, regardless of signage. Supporters of the law argued it struck a necessary balance, respecting the right to self-defense while prioritizing the safety of families, children, and communities in shared public spaces. But not everyone agreed. 3 Maui residents, backed by the Hawaii Firearms Coalition, filed a lawsuit, claiming the law amounted to a near-total ban on carrying guns in public. They argued that, in reality, very few businesses would ever post guns welcome signs, effectively making it impossible for law-abiding citizens to exercise their right to carry. The plaintiffs accused Hawaii of openly defying the Supreme Court's decision, creating new and unconstitutional barriers for responsible gun owners. Their lawsuit sought to overturn the law, arguing it placed an undue burden on Second Amendment rights and set a dangerous precedent for other states. The legal battle quickly drew national attention, with advocates and opponents across the country watching closely as Hawaii became a testing ground for post-Bruin gun policy. As the case moved forward, the stage was set for a high-stakes showdown, one with consequences that could ripple far beyond the islands, shaping the future of gun rights and public safety in America. For gun owners, Hawaii's law felt like a direct attack on their constitutional freedoms. They argued that a right that can't be exercised in daily life isn't a right at all. Under the law, licensed carriers could leave home armed, but would have to disarm before entering almost any business. Plaintiffs argued this left law-abiding citizens defenseless in public, while criminals would ignore the law. They pointed to history, claiming the default in America was always that guns were allowed, unless a property owner objected. Hawaii's law, they said, flipped tradition and set a dangerous precedent for other states. For gun owners nationwide, this case was about stopping a blueprint for undermining the Second Amendment. Hawaii defended its law as a responsible response to the Supreme Court's new standards. The state argued it was protecting both public safety and the rights of private property owners. Attorney General Ann Lopez said the law simply respected a business owner's presumed wish not to have guns unless they said otherwise. Supporters, including gun safety groups, warned that the alternative would force businesses to confront armed patrons or risk liability. They argued the law struck a sensible balance, allowing owners to permit guns if they chose, while protecting the community. Hawaii's defenders insisted their approach was consistent with American history and the need to balance rights in a crowded society. The legal fight began in federal court, where a judge sided with the plaintiffs, agreeing that Hawaii's new law overstepped constitutional boundaries. The judge's decision sent shockwaves through the state, as supporters of gun rights celebrated a major victory, while state officials quickly regrouped to defend their legislation. The state of Hawaii, determined to uphold its law, immediately filed an appeal. The legal battle intensified, drawing attention from advocacy groups and legal experts across the country. As the case moved up the judicial ladder, the stakes grew higher, with both sides preparing for a lengthy fight. At the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, a panel of judges reversed the lower court's ruling, declaring the law constitutional. The appeals court's opinion focused on the rights of private property owners, emphasizing that the Second Amendment does not require businesses to allow firearms on their premises. The court reasoned that property rights give business owners the authority to set their own rules, and nothing in the Constitution compels them to permit guns. This decision clashed with rulings from other federal courts, creating a legal split that demanded further review. Gun rights advocates, energized by national organizations, petitioned the Supreme Court to resolve the conflict. Their efforts were bolstered by growing public debate and media coverage, as the issue resonated far beyond Hawaii's borders. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, but chose to focus specifically on whether states can require private businesses open to the public to be gun-free zones by default. The justices declined to address bans on firearms in so-called sensitive places, such as schools, parks, and beaches. By narrowing the scope, the court set the stage for a focused legal showdown over the rights of business owners versus the rights of gun owners. The outcome would have implications for states nationwide, as lawmakers and citizens alike watched closely. As the Supreme Court prepared to decide, the nation waited for a ruling that could reshape the balance between public safety, private property, and constitutional rights. The Supreme Court delivered a 6-3 decision, striking down Hawaii's law. The conservative majority ruled that banning guns in most businesses, unless owners opt in, was inconsistent with American tradition and violated the Second Amendment. The court said the right to carry in public would be meaningless if states could make it nearly impossible in practice. The ruling clarified that property owners can still prohibit guns, but the state cannot impose a blanket ban on their behalf. The decision was hailed by gun rights advocates as a major victory for self-defense. In dissent, the liberal justices warned the ruling would make public spaces less safe and force businesses into unwanted confrontations. They argued the majority had overstepped, prioritizing gun rights over public safety and property rights. The decision set a new national standard for where guns can be carried. The Supreme Court's ruling immediately invalidated similar laws in California, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, and Illinois. These states had adopted the same model, banning guns in most businesses unless owners opted in. Now, those laws are unconstitutional and will be struck down or repealed. Gun control advocates must rethink their strategies, focusing on sensitive places or training requirements, though these too may face challenges. Gun rights groups celebrated, seeing the decision as a tool to challenge other restrictions nationwide. The default rule now reverts. Licensed individuals can carry in businesses unless the owner posts a no-gun sign. This will create a patchwork of policies, with businesses choosing their own rules. The debate over guns in public spaces is far from over. The Supreme Court's ruling has redrawn the map for gun regulation, but the future remains uncertain. States must now repeal or amend their laws, shifting the debate to individual business owners and their right to set policies. The new battleground will be over storefront signs and the social pressures they create. Gun rights and gun safety groups will mobilize, turning commercial spaces into the next front in the culture war. Major questions remain about sensitive places, as the court left those issues unresolved. The ruling deepens the divide between those prioritizing self-defense and those focused on public safety. The Supreme Court has tilted the scales, but the fight over America's gun laws is far from settled. The debate will continue in legislatures, communities, and daily life for years to come.